At Carl's Jr., we're pioneers of the great American burger. We're about quality, value, and taking a stand for your hard-earned dollar. That's why we made the $2.49 jalapeno double cheeseburger. It's the best burger for the price you ever had, with 2 charbroiled beef patties, jalapenos, and pepper jack cheese. Because if you don't stand for something, that means you're sitting, and that's just lazy. The $2.49 jalapeno double cheeseburger, the best $2.49 burger you ever had. Only at Carl's Jr. Price of participation may vary. Tax not included for a limited time only.
Now, the 3 Martini Lunch with Greg Columbus and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the 3 Martini Lunch, along with Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today, and all of it is brought to you by Simply Safe Home Security. Right now, go to simplysafe.com/ricochet to get a special 10% discount off your home security system when you order today. Simplysafe.com/ricochet. Jim, let's start with our good martini. And for those who haven't watched a lot of cable news in the last couple of days, good for you, because you would have missed the 48-hour, I believe, at least, countdown clock on CNN counting down to Jim Comey's testimony before the Congress at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. Wolf Blitzer, as I'm fond of saying, in urgent tone, as you can see, right there in the lower corner, only 45 hours until the former FBI director testifies about the Russia investigation. And so there'll be breathless coverage all over the place. Bars are opening early so people can drink at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's always a good start to the day. But apparently, Jim, it's not going to be quite as juicy as a lot of people who dislike the president or just want to see high drama. It's not going to work out that way, at least not as much as they hope so. This is ABC News. There will be much in former FBI Director James Comey's upcoming congressional testimony that will make the White House uncomfortable, but he will stop short of saying the president interfered with the agency's probe into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, a source familiar with Comey's thinking told ABC News. Although Comey has told associates he will not accuse the president of obstructing justice, he will dispute the president's contention that Comey told him 3 times he is not under investigation. The president allegedly said he hoped Comey would drop the Flynn investigation, a request that concerned Comey enough that he documented the conversation in a memo shortly after speaking with the president. In the memo, according to sources close to Comey who reviewed it, Trump said, quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go," during a February meeting. So ultimately, Comey telling associates he plans to testify that despite the unusual request from the president, he believed at the time that he could do his job properly and he could conduct the investigation in an honest way. So a lot of folks were hoping that this testimony is going to be full of smoking guns. I'm sure it'll still be full of stuff that Trump doesn't like, and we'll get a nice tweet storm tomorrow, Jim. But this was the big, juicy one that the Democrats and Trump haters wanted, and they're not going to get it.
Yeah, I also would point out, listeners can tell that I've started to really rub off on Greg when he starts doing Wolf Blitzer impressions. I must correct you slightly, Greg, that if you never say "stand by" at any point during a Wolf Blitzer impression, it doesn't really count. So, yeah, look, this was supposed to be the big headline, right? This was the impetus. This was the central point, and probably the strongest argument Democrats had for a impeachment. I know there've been some argument, the emoluments clause, and and just general invoke the 25th Amendment. He's losing his mind, and all that kind of stuff. Look, if you want to point to a serious, Nixon resigned, Clinton was impeached and remained in office because the Senate wouldn't convict. Removing an American president is a big deal. We've never done this before. You got to clear a high bar for that beyond, I don't like this guy. So the argument there was, okay, well, maybe he pressured Comey and that counts as obstruction of justice. Now, my colleague Andy McCarthy said, look, there's pressure and then there's obstruction. And first of all, the mindset of the perpetrator matters a deal. Funny, I seem to remember that being a really important point in Hillary and her private server at one point. But the suggestion there is like, look, if Trump says aloud, boy, I really hope you don't end up finding anything wrong with Flynn. Is it uncomfortable? Is it probably something a president should avoid saying? Yeah, but it in of itself is not saying you must drop this investigation. Flynn is a saint or something like that. It really comes down to you got to clear more than that. And it sounds like Comey's not willing to say that he considers that a conversation to be obstruction of justice. So I suppose the next Democratic argument will be, well, it's obstruction of justice, but James Comey just can't recognize it because he doesn't know enough about the law and law enforcement and what it means to interfere with a investigate. Look, if Comey doesn't feel like his investigation was obstructed, then I don't think you can say those comments meet that standard. It could be unwise, it can be bad judgment, it can be something the president should be avoiding, but I don't think it clears the bar for sufficient reason to remove the president. And so there we go. That's where we are. And if that's not the big thing, he's going to say that, he was under investigation and Trump tweeted that he wasn't. Anybody shocked by that? Right? I mean, Trump says a lot of stuff. He says a lot of stuff that's not accurate. People who paid attention during the campaign are less than stunned by this. So, yes, this is the president we have, America. He says a lot of things we don't like him saying. He says things that aren't accurate. A lot of times he seems utterly oblivious as to how things are supposed to work between him and the Department of Justice. But you know what? So far, there's no evidence he's committed an impeachable offense. And since that seems to be what Democrats are all craving here, it's very likely that at the end of the day, if the hearings aren't a complete nothing burger, then let's just say they're tofu, right? They're less than fully nourishing. No offense to everyone out there who enjoys tofu.
So the question, Jim, is if Jim Comey actually does what is being reported here and does not suggest that the president tried to obstruct justice, have we gotten another flip-flop now? Because remember, Comey was bad while he was investigating Hillary. Then he was good when he cleared her. Then he was bad when he reopened it. Then he was good when he got fired, and now he's bad again if he doesn't call for obstruction of justice charges. Do I have that right?
Oh, my goodness. I just suddenly got it, Greg. It's the Christopher Nolan movie, The Prestige. There are two Comeys all along. There's a good twin and a bad twin.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah. Well. It's been out a few years.
It's from the 90s, I think, so you should probably have seen it by now. All right, on to the Bad Martini now. And, Jim, one of the really first major political figures to get on board Donald Trump's campaign when virtually no one in Congress would do it was Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, mainly over the immigration issue. He was endorsing Trump at a big rally in Alabama before Super Tuesday. He was an unabashed supporter throughout the campaign. He was one of the first cabinet officials nominated by Trump to be attorney general. Contentious hearing, of course, got delayed a little bit, but ultimately he got through. But now it looks like there's some trouble in paradise here. This is courtesy of CNN, which you also referred to in the Morning Jolt today. President Donald Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions have had a series of heated exchanges in the last several weeks after Sessions recused himself from the Russia probe. A source close to Sessions told CNN on Tuesday. A senior administration official said that at one point Sessions expressed he would be willing to resign if Trump no longer wanted him there. Tuesday afternoon, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer declined to say whether Trump has confidence in Sessions. Quote, "I have not had a discussion with him about that," unquote, Spicer said. As of 9 p.m. Eastern Time Tuesday, the White House still was unable to say whether or not the president backs his attorney general, a White House official said. So, Jim, I think this probably helps to explain the tweet storm aimed at the Department of Justice about the travel ban and how they should have stuck with the original one, and 2020 hindsight perhaps on the part of Trump. Of course, he still fails, as we pointed out earlier in the week, to realize that it's his call on whether or not he wants to pursue a remedy in court for the original or the second travel ban. But if Trump and Jeff Sessions can't get along, Jim, what hope is there for stability here?
First of all, 4 months since he was confirmed.
Right.
This is not, a long time for them to be working together. As we pointed out, Jeff Sessions is probably the lawmaker who has been most enthusiastically supportive of Trump, who certainly was campaigning with him the most, who would seem to have the best relationship with Trump. And it sounds like after 4 months, these guys are already, if not at each other's throats, then there's some fairly serious tensions there, particularly if he offered to quit with over the dispute. Now, a bunch of people, I wrote about this morning, like, well, Jim, it's all anonymous sources. How do you even know that's true? Well, Sarah Flores, the Department of Justice spokeswoman, declined to, did not, said she had no comment. Now, here's the thing. If there's a false information out there, It is the job of people like, well, do they have to respond to every rumor? Well, the rumor that your boss offered to resign is a pretty big deal, right? And if it's false, you'd come out and say, no, that's not true. The attorney general has never offered to resign to the president. This is a made-up story. The fact the Department of Justice did not say, no, this is not true, makes me think that this is, not just plausible, but likely. And what's more is this idea of, do we really find it that unthinkable that Trump would not get along with somebody in law enforcement? Do we not just have the issue with Comey, right? I mean, is this really that unthinkable? So again, like if let's say, God forbid, he goes through this and gets really mad at Sessions and fires him. Well, who do you want? All right, it took him 3 weeks to find an FBI director. Who else is out there who Trump is going to get along with well? I mean, I pointed out this comes on the heels of they got rid of Dubke, the White House communications director. They haven't replaced him. Every couple of weeks, there's a rumor Reince Priebus is going out. Jeff Bannon is going out. Now, maybe this is hyperactive sources in the White House. But apparently Trump calls up people and says, hey, do you think I should get rid of this guy? And he does it quite a bit. And there's this constant churn and this constant sense of anxiety. And I don't think, at this point, the problem is not really the staff, Mr. President. I don't think you're going to find somebody better than Jeff Sessions, particularly if you fire him after 4 months. And the argument is, it sounds like Trump is really upset about was this decision to recuse. Well, Sessions had to do it after the issue in his testimony about not mentioning the meeting with the Russian. That was one of the really important ways for Jeff Sessions to earn back the trust, to say, no, this was legitimately an oversight. I'm not hiding something. This won't be an issue, and you guys, everybody on Capitol Hill can trust me. That was an important part of his confirmation process. So, again, it's deeply frustrating. At some point, this is the kind of recurring theme. Trump has got to get out of his own way, and he's got to stop impeding the people who are working for him and trying to help him. I don't think that Jeff Sessions is the problem in this administration. I think at some point the problem starts at the top. I've just been reading this fascinating book by Jocko Willenick, who's a former Navy SEAL, talks about leadership, and it really is the message he keeps reemphasizing. The buck stops here. The buck stops at the top. If your subordinates are frustrating you, that's on you. You're clearly not explaining something correctly. Clearly, you're not making clear enough what the objective is and how it's supposed to be worked. And you have this sneaking feeling that Trump has this appetite for scapegoats and loves to berate people for problems. Well, it starts with you, Mr. President. So hopefully this is just a passing storm, but you're kind of left with this situation. He ignores Tillerson and Mattis and McMaster on the NATO decision. He's at odds with Sessions. Who does Trump get along with these days?
That's a good question.
Not Jared.
It's not Jared, no. Jim, that answer was full of good information, but I think the most depressing thing in there is when you mentioned that it's only been 3 weeks since Trump fired Comey, because it really does feel like about 3 or 4 months, if not years, since that happened.
As I was writing at the Morning Jolt this morning, Greg, I will point out, I was saying, and we haven't even replaced the FBI director. And of course he has. So give him credit where credit is due. It did take him only 3 weeks. I was grumbling a bit because he said the search was moving quickly and we should have a replacement very quickly, like 2.5 weeks ago, but he has replaced it. And everybody seems to be very happy with the nominee so far, Christopher Wray. So previewing perhaps a future Martini as we know more about Mr. Wray.
Absolutely. Christopher Wray, former Justice Department official, former federal prosecutor, led the Enron investigation. Also did some legal work for Chris Christie on Bridgegate, so I'm sure that'll come up a little bit in the confirmation hearings. But, you're allowed to have clients when you're in private practice. Jim, we've talked a lot about shaky job security. Let's talk a little bit about much stronger home security, because millions of Americans get home security because they want to feel safe when they go to bed at night, and that makes sense, and that's important. But keep this in mind. Most home invasions, when do you think they occur? It's not at night. It's between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., when your family is out of the house. So it's possible that while you're breaking for lunch, burglars are breaking into your home. And while you're doing your best work, they're getting ready to do their worst. So don't spend your workday worrying.
Stop intruders in their tracks with Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe is a completely wireless system that is easy to install. You can build an arsenal for all-day protection in under an hour. With entry sensors, glass break sensors, and a high-definition security camera, you'll know what's going on at home every time you're away. and there are no long-term contracts. Simply Safe's round-the-clock professional monitoring is just $14.99 a month.
That's a good deal. Go to simplysafe.com/ricochet to get a special 10% discount off your home security system when you order today. That's Simply Safe, SIMPLISAFE.com. Simplysafe.com/ricochet for 10% off. Jim, we've talked a lot about terrorist attacks, unfortunately, as we transition to our crazy martini today. Most recently, of course, the bombing in Manchester and then the multiple terrorist attacks in London over the weekend. There was another one here on Wednesday. This one, I'm guessing, is eliciting a slightly different reaction given who's involved and what was targeted here. This is courtesy of the Associated Press. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility Wednesday for a stunning pair of attacks on Iran's parliament and the mausoleum of its modern founder, Ayatollah Khomeini, the first such attack claimed by the Sunni extremist group in the Shiite-ruled nation. The lethal assaults, which killed at least 12 people and shocked the country, brought Iran's wars in Iraq and Syria to its capital at a time when emboldened Sunni Arab states, led by Saudi Arabia and backed by U.S. President Donald Trump, hardened their position on its Shiite leadership. And so 12 people dead. Not exactly sure whether the terrorists are included in that count. Getting good details out of Iran is not the easiest thing. But, Jim, obviously you don't want innocent lives lost. It looks like they attacked the government and the shrine of Khomeini, who is certainly no friend of the United States. You know, Iran's used to exporting terror, not importing terror, but it looks like that's what happened today.
Finally, their trade balance is being addressed. Tisk, tisk, ISIS. This is wrong. I am just drumming my fingers on the desk with fury over this. This is really unacceptable. Let me tell you. That's bad ISIS. Bad ISIS. That's the look. It's terrible when innocent people die. Nobody deserves to be blown up or attacked or shot or something like that. But boy, Shrine of the Ayatollah. Greg, weren't you and I just planning on visiting that and thinking about how special a site that was and all that? Yeah. So, now here's the thing. I understand the Iranian parliament literally, I'm not making this up. I did see this report that they started chanting death to the USA after this. And I'm sitting thinking, could you guys just chant death to ISIS for once? I mean, they literally just attacked you. Could you just for variety, just to shake things up a little, could you chant death to, because maybe all of a sudden you realize, hey, terrorism is bad. Maybe we shouldn't sponsor this stuff. Maybe we shouldn't be sending cash to these people. But apparently too much to ask or something like that. So, bad ISIS, bad job. Don't do that.
You know, those of us who are old enough, Jim, remember the Iran-Iraq war that took up most of the 1980s and pretty much kept Iran occupied for a lot of the 1980s, although they certainly did sponsor quite a bit of terrorism in Lebanon and elsewhere that affected the United States, the Beirut bombing, of course, being the worst of it, and killing 241 Marines. But the fact that two people we hate are perhaps ratcheting things up against one another could be worse.
I was going to say, those you and I are old enough to remember the coverage of the Iran-Iraq war treated it as if it was one of the great tragedies of our time. And look, undoubtedly, a lot of innocent lives were lost. I think I remember the reading in the New Republic back when it was a good magazine, this horrifying story of the Iranian regime using children to clear minefields. Basically giving them plastic keys to wear around their necks that they said were the keys to heaven, sent the kids out, and one by one they blew themselves up clearing out minefields. This is an abominable regime. And then, of course, on the other side is Saddam Hussein, who obviously is as bloodthirsty and horrible as the other side. So really looking back on the Iran-Iraq war, for certain interests, it is kind of the good old days. It is kind of good to have two scorpions in a bottle just fighting the heck out of each other, because the more aggression and violence and all of that focused on each other, the less they're going to focus on everybody else. So if ISIS and Iran go at each other, hey, you know what? Good. We might even find ourselves briefly or momentarily rooting for ISIS, actually rooting for Iran, actually rooting for, who knows? They're both pretty darn bad. That's kind of my attitude when I start seeing the Assad regime bombing ISIS and vice versa. These are both evil forces. So anything that weakens both of them is fine for us. Again, if Iran wants to cooperate with us on fighting ISIS, well, then, maybe that'd be kind of nice. I was reading that this morning. I had not known. Did you know, Greg, that Al-Qaeda had said they do not want jihadists attacking Iran?
Why?
Apparently they get an exemption. I don't know if it's like, game respects game, or what to do. But Al-Qaeda is like, whoa, don't attack the Iranians. They're the good guys. Now, this is all in keeping that, remember that we were constantly told Sunnis and Shias can never work together. But apparently a non-aggression pact, that can be done together. So the unnerving historical parallels between the Molotov-Ribbentrop pact do seem to strike here. So again, when bad guys fight bad guys, I like to think we all win, Greg.
Good reference there to the Eastern Front in World War II. When bad guys make non-aggression pacts, they don't always stick. So we'll see. Jim, I hope you've got your beverage of choice ready for the Comey hearings tomorrow. We'll be talking during the midst of them, of course. It's kind of sad commentary about D.C. that the whole day is revolving around alcohol and congressional testimony.
We got to wrap this up quickly, Greg. I got to finish all my Comey miss shopping.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And don't forget to visit our friends at Simply Safe Home Security, simplysafe.com/ricochet, and get that 10% discount off your home security system today. Join us again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.
Jack's gonna crash your plane. Jackbox crashes hunger like no one else can, by driving through a wall in a passenger van. So if you're craving pancakes morning or night, Jack's gonna crash that craving and make it all right.
Here, try my jumbo breakfast platter with scrambled eggs, 8 mini pancakes, hash brown, and bacon or sausage for just $2.99.
$2.99? Shut the front door.
Of the van or only a Jack in the Box? Limited time only at participating restaurants.
Meet Lauren Askinosi of Askinosi Chocolate.
Our dream is to make chocolate that not only tastes good, but does good. We source our cocoa beans directly from small farmers and share the profits back with them.
At American Family Insurance, we believe your dreams are the most valuable things you will ever own. So today, we're supporting Lauren's dream.
If people want to get involved, they can just buy some of our chocolate.
Every dream deserves a champion. Find yours at amfam.com. American Family Insurance.
American Family Mutual Insurance Company and its affiliates. 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin, 53783.